In this video, we will break down the mathematics of Earth realm as well as the end of time mathematics. And notice I said end of time and not end of the world. There is a distinct delineation, and I want you to make that while thinking about this mathematical vortex math code I'm about to lay out to you. In order for us to gain a broader and deeper understanding, let's first run through the Christmas or the Christmas of the math within the vortex of Earth realm, so we can get to the part where we discuss the end time formula, which is here, and the mathematics that is surrounding the Earth reset, as well as the pillars of truth and justice as the judgment of all individuals on Earth. Let's start off with the breakdown of the realm. So this would be a representation of Earth realm. I have divided it off into 4 quadrants as well as 6 parts. These 6 parts break down into the following mathematics. So in the top you have 1 and 3, and I put 1 and 3 there because the 1 and the 3 is a representation of 4, which is also 22, and the 2 and the 5 is at the bottom, which is a representation of 7. This is how the realm divides up: 4 equaling 22 and 2 and 5 equaling 7. 22 divided by 7 equals pi, which is 3.14. Pi is an irrational number. It means an unlimited amount of choices, meaning that when you have sexual intercourse between a male and a female, this is the representation of the feminine and the masculine, okay, with these 2 numbers. This is your everyday person, unascended, regular, just procreation between a male and female. When you talk about 22 divided by 7, which gets you one of the unlimited possibilities within pi, which is birthing new light beings or new beings within the realm. 4 plus 6 equals 10, which is basically your binary code or quantum qubits. This is the binary code or polarity for all of existence. This is what makes up all of life, because on a quantum level, everything is frequency and light. And we are talking about angles and degrees can be measured mathematically, numerically, through wavelength, vibration. Earth's grid is comprised of 196 squares of light. This is what you call the 7 Olympian spirits that govern the provinces, or basically create the grid or the simulation of life on Earth. It is the grid mapped out by the star system or the alloy ball system in my Earth model. Now, I have other videos that I explain how this is broken down, but in this video, we're strictly going to stick to the math. So you have the grid of 196 squares. This is a square number. And if you divide it by 14, it's going to give you 14. This places Earth's grid in a 7 by 7 layout, okay? Everything is about the number 7. It's 7 days a week, because it's a representation of the mathematics of how we end this particular simulation. So what I'm going to do today is teach you the deeper symbolic meanings of all of the numbers and how we get to the end time mathematics, not the end of the world, in time. So when you talk about 22 divided by 7, the 22 is actually the number 4, which is a representation of just the woman. The 7 is a representation of the masculine, which is just the man. In order for you to have a baby, you need to divide 7, which means that the male needs to impregnate the woman, and this is the division that gives you life, the life of pi. And this is your typical standard everyday male and female just procreating on Earth. When you talk about ascended masters or the 2 witnesses or the twin flames of Revelations 11, you're talking about the bride of Christ or the bridegroom, which are 2 ascended masters. The number 3 is a representation of the death and resurrection of Christ, or Inanna. And you're talking about adding 2 onto both of these numbers, 4 and 7, in order for you to get an actual yin yang butterfly balanced twin energy. And the only way to do that is by becoming Christ conscious. You need to have the oil anointing, which in essence binds the butterfly twin souls back together and mends their connection through the mind space, because they are 2 photon light beings of the same photon light, just split into 2 polarities, 2 bodies, representing the number 33. So once they become Christ and they ascend and they join together in the mind space and they have Christ consciousness, you will add 2 onto their numbers. So the number 22, which is 4, you add 4 plus 2, which equals 6. That will give you your yin energy, which is the feminine, which is her number that symbolizes that she is an ascended master, or she is a Christ. Okay. And then the 7 you would add to, which is the death and resurrection, and that will become the 9, which is the yang, or the divine masculine energy. And together they will create 3 and 3, okay? Because now they have added 2 to each of their numbers, and this equation, which means 2 Christ divided by 9, which is the final number, or the last number, or completion number, as well as the yang, which is a representation of the man-child. They are the last and final equation that birthed the man-child into the realm that causes the solar reset, as depicted in Revelations 6:12. And the reason why it's in 6:12 is because 6 and 12 is 6 and 3, which equals 9, and 369 is going to be extremely crucial in understanding the mathematics that I am breaking down here today. So you have 22 divided by 7 plus 2 will give you 33. 9, which is a representation of the 2 witnesses. They are 2 ascended masters. They are 2 Christ. They have mastered the flesh, which means that they have gained Christ consciousness through fasting, and they have added on to their numbers through death to the ego and resurrection of the third eye. By having Christ's oil awakening, they have become ascended masters, and they themselves are the formula for the end time event. They are the twin pillars. Okay, so if you look at pi is 3.14, and 3 plus 1 plus 4 equals 8, which is a representation of the time loop. The iteration of the number 8 can be written out exactly like this in a geometric formation, and it then becomes 2 pyramids, or it's 2 sevens in their shape. Okay, and the 7 is a representation of the scythe energy, or the reaping energy that separates the wheat from the tares. When you have the solar reset, these 2 energies coming together to give birth to the man-child is going to be your final number in terms of separating the wheat from the tares through the pillars of truth and justice. Okay, the 2 sevens are significant in that regard, as they represent the scythe energy, and you have these 2 inverted pyramids, which is also another representation of sexual intercourse between a male and a female. Only in their case, they are ascended masters, so they become the 3 in the 3, the butterfly twin souls joined, or the Christ ascended 2 witnesses. And in their case, they bring on the final mathematics because they have joined together as twin souls. They become the black swans that bring on the gravitational singularity black sun event, which is a representation of the Hopi prophecies of the red and blue Kachina. The number 3 and the number 7 is significant because this is your Christmas code, December 25th. 12 is 1 plus 2 equals 3, and 2, 5 equals 7. 3 plus 7 equals 10, which again is your binary code. It is also a representation of the phallus and the womb, which is the male and the female. This is also a representation of the Christ ascended masters, as well as the scythe at the end of time. In your final formula, which is 33 divided by 9, this equals 3.66666667. And these are a sequence of 7 6s, which I will break down in the next part. The 3 and the 7 is a representation of the ascended Christ, as well as the reaping energy at the end of time, which this sequence of 6s is nestled right in the middle. You're talking about the 2 decisions that you can make in either the left or the right pillar. You have the left hand, which is the feminine, and you have the right hand, which is the masculine, and you have a 6 in the middle. This is an iteration of all of your 3, 6, 9, because these 6s spiral out into larger binary code, and they can go in a multitude of ways, which I will show you at the end. The 7 6s is a representation of 7 plus 6 equals 13, which is the 13th bloodline that ends time through the birth of the man-child. And the 13 equals 4, and 4 plus 7 equals 11, which is your twin pillars of truth and justice. This is also a representation of Jashin and Boaz, which are your twin pillars, Ruth and Boaz, okay, which are your 2 witness energies. Ruth is nothing but the truth without the T. Let's get into the mathematics of these sixes and how this breaks down in your end time code, and how the realm in which we live in right now is being shaped by the frequency of fear and the different things that are calculating into this particular formula right now, and how it is actually aiding in the shutdown or moving us faster into the end of this cycle or this loop.